Good evening. My name is Stacey Brightman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Ebell of Los Angeles. Ow! And on behalf of our Board of Directors and our incredible membership of community, of volunteers, supporters, and leaders, I am honored to welcome you here to this exquisite, historic theater in the heart of Los Angeles. Why are we here? The Ebell was founded in 1894 in the fervor of the women's movement, and when Los Angeles County only had about 100,000 residents, by a small group of bold women who joined together to carve out a public and civic role for themselves. They could not vote, and all avenues of career and education were very tightly shut against them. They believed, however, that by banding together and creating their own opportunities to create, to learn, to advocate, and to lead, they could make a better future for their sisters, their daughters, their mothers, and yes, their sons' husbands and brothers too. Our mission remains essentially the same: to inspire women and to build community. And as with our founding mothers, art, music, theater, literature, and education remain that Ebell's hammers of choice with which we build a stronger community and shape a better future. Now, the Ebell women built this exquisite arts and education campus in 1927, and it includes 5 different theaters, and it was meant to be a beautiful and inspiring beacon to all of Los Angeles, and to be an inclusive space where art, ideas, and civic engagement converge. Indeed, I've been doing my research, and this theater appears to be the oldest theater in the country that was built by women and is still operated by women. It is a place where history has been made and celebrated for nearly 100 years, from Judy Garland to Etta James to Hillary Clinton, from Nina Simone, Dolly Parton, and Kamala Harris. And to tonight, with the extraordinary Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. We invite everyone here to join us as a member of the Ebell. The Ebell is a movement. It's the women's movement, and we need you. And as with any good theater, I know that the spirits of our founding mothers are here tonight, excited to learn and hear this program and to be inspired. But before we begin, the Ebell wants to thank and acknowledge some extraordinary leaders who have honored us with their presence tonight. Thank you to Ambassador Diane Watson for joining us. We also welcome the staff members of Congressman Adam Schiff's office that are here with us. And I offer a warm welcome to my sister members of the LA County Commission for Women. But to welcome all of us, we are incredibly honored to be joined by a member of the first all-women LA County Board of Supervisors and our first woman elected mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Please welcome Supervisor Hilda Solis and Mayor Karen Bass. Woo! Wow. There's just a few women in the house. Buenas noches. Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy and proud to be here, and I'm honored to be here today alongside one of my comadres,
and a friend and a heroine for many of us. She is one of the very few women who has done tremendous things. I want to give it a big shout out for our mayor, Karen Bass. Woo! But equally inspiring, if not more, is to celebrate the legacy of our dear friend, and that is Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. I have to call her Speaker Pelosi because that's the only word I know. I knew her when she did become Speaker, and I've always held her in high esteem and with most regard. She is one of those most consequential women in the national leadership history for all of us. So let's give her a big round of applause. She has helped to elevate women in the Congress at the local level for so many years. And I've had the personal privilege of serving with her when she was our leader, but also our speaker. During the time that I spent in the Congress, about 8 years, and as Secretary of Labor, she was an ally and someone who always knew that helping other women was going to help everyone else. She never forgot that. She brought those values with her, and she shared it with us. And that really takes a lot of leadership to be able to do that, to shine the light on other people, to help uplift them. And she knew exactly what she was doing. When I was there, I got to serve on some very key committees that aren't how could I say, easily attainable, especially when you're a woman. I got to serve because of her leadership on the Energy and Commerce Committee. That is one of those coveted committees at the time that I was there. And it was hard work, but it was good because it was about helping the environment, helping women, climate change, and making sure that we could take a stand on the world stage. She did that. And I was so proud that I was the first Latina woman. She did that. She did that. She also appointed me to several committees, and I will tell you that one of the things that I remember fondly about was working with her and her team and working on creating green jobs, sustainability, climate change. She was so far ahead of the time before so many people. I was happy to serve with her and also now Senator Markey on going to different, how could I say, investigations, scouting, and looking at what we could do to help change the trajectory on climate change. And I'll never forget some of the work that she did and helped to lead to help empower us, to make sure that people knew that our climate change and our habitat, our environment were so important. And I give her that credit because it took a woman to do that. And she did it. She did it. But she did so much more. She cares about the environment. She cares about wildlife. She cares about the underserved communities. And that's why I know she appointed me to those committees, because she wanted to see that our voices could be lifted up from every part of our communities, no matter what zip code you came from, no matter what education or what economic status. It was always about fairness and equity, and that's what I remember most about her. I was very pleased to serve, and she helped me to get a position as co-chair of the Women's Caucus. And here I was, a newbie. They call us newbies, because if you haven't been there long, you have to earn seniority, but she helped to propel me. And she saw that there was a reason why we need to have different voices to share that power. So she's one that was selfless in allowing that to happen. She also appointed me to a very important committee, the Helsinki Commission. Here's a girl from San Gabriel Valley. I don't necessarily have to deal in international issues, but it was about human rights. It was about human rights. And she knew that was so important. So I give her so much credit for allowing me to be a part of that. And it has been a privilege of my lifetime to be able to do that. She cares about human rights. I was able to travel with her in many parts of the country, but also around the world. And I'm very proud that one thing that stands out for me, during the time that we were going through the war, there was very much happening with respect to women. The Taliban, remember what was happening with women? She also stepped up to help us, Latinas, when we were seeing individuals that were being impacted in Ciudad Juarez in Mexico. Young girls were being assassinated for no reason, killed, murdered. But she supported my efforts and the movement of women to help bring some reality and life to those women. And that's very important because these are our neighbors. They live across the border. And those things still continue to go on. It's been a lifetime of achievement for her, but she's done so much to help all of us. And we want to say thank you to Nancy Pelosi in her book and everything that she's done, and we want to continue to support her. So thank you. Muchísimas gracias, Nancy. She is a badass woman. And our mayor.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to see so many people up there. I can barely see you, but this room is filled with everybody because you all have the same respect that both of us have for our speaker, because she will always be my speaker. I just want to say thank you. I just want to say two things. One of the things that I enjoyed about spending 12 years in Congress is watching Speaker Pelosi lead. The Art of Power is such a perfect title for the book, because if anybody has mastered the art and the science of power and leadership, it is Speaker Pelosi. So one thing I want to leave you with, because, and I'm going to say this every time I speak about her, is that I was there during the years of that other guy who we're going to make sure never gets the keys back to Pennsylvania Avenue again. And what our country doesn't know, and she's not going to say herself, is that the reason we made it through those 4 years is because of her leadership, because she couldn't deal with him. McConnell decided he was on Trump's staff, and so she had to figure out members of the cabinet that she could work with to get things done. So we are here today. Our country is stable, and we're going to keep it that way. But the leadership that she played, the leadership role that she played during those 4 years should be listed and lifted up in our history, because she held us together. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Grossman, the founder of Writer's Block. Thank you. And tonight is the first program of our 29th season. Thank you. That's my family right there. Massive thanks to my wonderful friends here at the Ebell. While Stacey got to introduce our distinguished guests, I get to do the really fun stuff. I need to read you the rules of the road. You look like a lovely and gentle crowd, but all of you know that we're in strange times. So hear me out. Writer's Block and the Ebell believe in free speech. Tonight, the floor belongs only to Speaker Pelosi and Tracee Ellis Ross. So, if we see any behavior that we think makes our guests feel unsafe or uncomfortable in any way, this is a polite warning. We retain the right to remove offenders. Thank you for abiding by our code of conduct. And before I move on to Speaker Pelosi and Tracee Ellis Ross, I want to take this opportunity to recognize and thank the Capitol Police for their service here tonight and in Washington. Thank you. Okay, we're in a hurry. Okay, they appreciate that. Now, so Speaker Pelosi, now for tonight, Speaker Pelosi's vision and unrelenting courage have defined the Democratic Party for decades. Her impact while serving with 6 presidents has been immeasurable. From her fight to fund AIDS, healthcare decades ago, and even now, 40 years later, fighting for better healthcare, for reproductive freedom, and so many other issues besides those, she uses her power to actually help people. Think about it. The whole House of Representatives do agree on one thing. All members of Congress on both sides of the aisle recognize Speaker Pelosi as the representation of clear-eyed Democratic Party values. Speaking of Democratic values, Tracee Ellis Ross is here tonight to chat with Speaker Pelosi about her new book, The Art of Power. Tracee is an actor, producer, entrepreneur, and fashion icon. I am too, of course, tonight. And she has racked up countless acting awards in addition to so many NAACP Image Awards. She's an activist who's beloved by women who wield influence. Michelle Obama, for example, asked Tracee to moderate her events for her Blockbuster tour a few years ago. So here's what's going to happen tonight. Tracee and Speaker Pelosi will chat about the art of power and general stuff happening in our country right now. We've gathered some questions from you. Now, we know you want to take pictures, but that drives everyone around you crazy. So we have a solution. When Speaker Pelosi and Tracee Ellis Ross come out on the stage, here's your chance. You stand up, you take pictures for about 20 seconds. Then you sit down, you make sure your phones are turned off, and you put them away. Then you enjoy the program. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our rock star, our North Star, Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Tracee Ellis Ross.
Hello, everybody. All right, let's dive in here. So, Madam Speaker, although I just got the okay that I could call her Nancy, but I was raised differently, so I will not. It's really an honor to sit with you in person. We did this via Zoom during the pandemic, but to be able to talk about your book, The Art of Power, your illustrious career as the most powerful woman in American politics, and I just want you to know that I am endlessly in awe of you and how substantial you are as a human being, as a politician, as a woman, and your level of accomplishment is staggering. It's staggering. I don't know if you all have read the book yet. I had the honor, actually, of listening to you read it, which I really loved. But I was able to grasp and understand so much new information about how our government works, and I learned a lot from your book about how things get done, what it takes to get things done, and more than that, how the reality is different from public perception. And as a member of the public, I am always grateful when the curtain is pulled back. And not just by anyone, but by a verified source, especially around some of the momentous events that we have experienced as a nation, and to be able to have them unpacked with such clarity through the lens of service is really important, especially as we are on the eve of this election. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Tracee. Thank you all very much for coming this evening. I hope you are as excited as I am to be here with Tracee Ellis Ross. Isn't she wonderful?
Nope, it's me excited to be here with you.
I'm excited. I want to thank Stacey for giving us some of the history of this beautiful theater developed by women for women. And while Stacey was speaking about it, I thought my book is called The Art of Power. But in listening to her speak about this theater, I thought of the power of art. It brings us together, does it, in such a special way. And of course, Tracee, that's the story of you and your family. The power of art, so unifying. We come together, we laugh together, we cry together, we're inspired together, we forget our differences, we find common ground. So let's all strive for common ground. Thank you, Stacey, for your hospitality and your explanation of all this, and to Andrea Grossman, Writer's block. That's What a perfect name. Without the K, though. It's a block of a coming together of people who are writers. And under your auspices, I'm honored to be here, as well as in this beautiful theater, and all of you who are part of both that auspices and this venue. Wasn't it exciting to see the mayor here tonight? I told her earlier that I was so proud to see her at the Olympics looking so beautiful, so in charge, receiving the flag, and so glad she didn't come down on a rope. Leave that to the guys. But Mary, thank you for making us proud in so many, many ways. I'm so honored that you're here. It was my honor to serve with the mayor in Congress, and all of us who saw her up close know how great she is in public service, in her values and her vision. Thank you, Mayor. And as far as our colleague, our former colleague, Hilda Solis, I'll just tell you this one thing, because she told you a lot of things about this, that, and the other thing we did together. She's remarkable in the Congress, and the President Obama's cabinet and the rest, and the first this and the first that and that. But I'll tell you this one thing. In 2000, one of my paths to being the speaker was a political path. I showed them I could win elections. And in the year 2000, in California, we made it, in the morning we were 26-26, at night we were 31 Democrats, 21 Republicans. And one of those Democrats who would later be part of our Democratic majority to give us the gavel was Hilda Solis. She came in as part of that historic class. And later she would be in that list of majority makers. That included Tim Walz, the candidate for Vice President of the United States. So you see, we're very proud of our talent in the House, the mayor of Los Angeles, Hilda Solis, the supervisor, Tim Walz, soon to be President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, under the first woman President of the United States. Tracee, people are always saying to me, oh, you're the most powerful woman in history and this or that. What's really exciting, in 12 days minus 2 days, 12 weeks minus 2 days, I will be relinquishing that title to Kamala Harris as President of the United States. Pretty exciting. I don't think that was political, do you?
Okay, so I hope you all have purchased your copy. You make it very clear that this book is not a memoir.
Right.
So could you share with us what you intended for this book to be and why you felt the need to write it?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, a number of years ago, I thought it would be important to show, from the standpoint of the House Democrats, how we saw different things. So, two domestic, two foreign. Domestic being the Affordable Care Act, just an issue that we're all proud to be part of. I wanted to show how that happened, and then I wanted to show what happened from our perspective when the meltdown on Wall Street, which was earlier than the Affordable Care Act. So these are they happened a number of years ago. On the foreign policy side, I very much objected to the war in Iraq and wanted to tell the story from the side of the House Democrats in that regard, and my own personal concern about it, as well as the issue of our relationship with China. So I was going to write about these four things years ago, but I was too busy being speaker and I didn't have time to write a book. I didn't exactly have writer's block, but I just didn't have writer's time. Maybe I would have had the block too if I were trying to write it. But so then when I had passed on the torch to Hakeem Jeffries and a new Pete Aguilar from here, Catherine Clark, Ted Lieu from here, then I had time to write the book. But people said, well, you have to write about
who shall remain nameless.
What's his name? You have to write about that. You have to write about January 6th. Well, that includes him. And you have to write about what happened to your husband and something about leadership. So, but it does, as I told the mayor earlier, there's so many things that we did that aren't in the book that I'll have to write another book. But that's the thing. It was set for just 4 things, then expanded to be more current, but not inclusive of all these other things. And it's not a memoir. That remains to be seen. But it is, I think, interesting when you see how certain special interests dominated so many of the things that happen that affect people in their lives. One of the things that I want to mention, because it's today, I don't know if you saw this morning, actually I was supposed to be there, but I'm here, President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris were together in Maryland where they announced the success of our reducing the price of prescription drugs. We have been trying to do that for years. Madam Mayor, Madam Supervisor can tell you, we've been trying to do that for years. We did it in the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, which put all this money for saving the planet from the climate crisis, but then also reduced the cost of prescription drugs. Insulin went from $600 and $500 a month to $35 a month for senior women. But in the bill, we said that we give the authority to the Secretary of HHS, in this case Javier Becerra, you know him from here, and give him the authority to negotiate for lower prices. We have been trying for decades to do this. We were able to do it in that bill under President Biden and Vice President Harris, but with the Democratic Congress in the House and in the Senate. It was a big accomplishment for us. And today they showed the reduction in prices, drastic reduction in prices for the first tranche of those drugs. This is a very big deal because this is saying to the special interests, I said to you before, the sort of the, shall we say, greed caucus, whether it's guns, whether it's fossil fuels, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whatever it is. This is something very different, and Kamala and Tim will build on this. But when you read about it, understand it's historic, it's different, it's breaking away from the shackles of the powers that be and all the money that they spend on TV and in commercials and all the rest. So was that the answer to the question?
Yes.
Why did I write this book?
Yes. And actually, what I sit here watching, and also what I experienced in the book, is the reality of what it takes to get things done and how your laser focus on making things happen from the lens of service. Actually, being of service to the constituents and the reason that you're there, which is a different way of looking at power than we have been seeing. Of sorts. So I have a question for you about, yes, it's true. How would you describe your leadership style? Because in order to get things done, what does that look like on a daily basis for you? Because the word that keeps coming up for me is tactician. Not strategy, but like being tactical about how to get things done. So how would you describe your leadership style?
Well, I thank you for asking that question. I'll try to be brief on this one.
You don't have to be brief.
Here's the thing. My daughter Christine is here with Nicole Boxer's daughter. Nicole Boxer, Barbara Boxer's daughter. And Barbara Boxer taught me a lot of things when I went to the Congress of the United States. Here's the thing. It's all about respect. It's about respect for the members. It's respect for the public and what they expect of you. It's respect for people who don't agree with you. And I had two sort of metaphors that I use. One is that I was a weaver at a loom. And it was my goal to convince the members that every thread in our caucus was part of a beautiful tapestry. And sometimes we wouldn't all agree and have unanimity, but we would always have consensus. So if you were not part of the unanimity one day, tomorrow was another day when you might have a bill or a priority or something that you wanted everyone else to join in on. So it was a respect that everybody knew that even if they didn't vote with us one day, we love them dearly, and that tomorrow was another day. So the tomorrow another day is the second analogy. It's a kaleidoscope. It would be one day, all of us and one would be on one side of the room and all be for something, even maybe just all the Democrats. The next day it might be some Republicans and some Democrats, but everybody was a resource along the way. So you didn't want to ever do anything to weaken. You always wanted to respect. You didn't want to weaken anybody's strength because they would all be part of a success. Now that used to be more prevalent than in recent years. But we still have some areas, whether it's human rights globally or certain issues where we can come together in a bipartisan way, and you don't question their motivation or anything. You just hope to find common ground. Respect. It is. I know there are tactics to it, but it is an overall strategy. What is our vision? What is our knowledge and judgment, so that when you're telling people about it, they respect your judgment because you have knowledge? What is your strategy to get it done so that they know it has a chance of success? And what is in your heart? What is the goodness of all of this? And so and I would go to this next point is, I don't usually ask somebody to vote for something unless I think it's going to win. So that takes some, shall we say, personal research to do.
I wish I
and
had
I always
a pen.
say that one of the great things that some of us bring to the table is intuition, anticipation. Know your subject, know your audience, know your voters, know the public on the subject. So when an opportunity comes along, you can act and get things done. The longer you wait, the more diminished your prospects will be. But read my book, you'll see that there.
I wish I had a pen. I don't know if you guys are taking notes, but vision, I mean, there's some real pearls coming out here that whether you're in politics or not are going to help you in your decision-making process and how you operate in the world. You just mentioned intuition. You talk about the speaker role being one of the most difficult, citing the need for strategic know-how, policy, background, and intuition, the combination of those three things. And that if you take too long to make a decision or you delay your decision, people will chip away at it. So how would you weigh each of those qualities against each other? Strategic know-how, policy, background, intuition. How do you follow your intuition quickly? And how do you follow your intuition while staying strategic?
Well, one of the basic things that I should have said first is in your party, say, or across the aisle, it's really important to know if you have shared values. Know your why. I say it throughout the book. Know your why. Why are you here? Why are you here? My why I left housewife, House member, House Speaker, was the 1 in 5 children in America who lives in poverty. So everybody knew that my motivation was always about the children. When they asked me what are the 3 most important issues facing the Congress, I always said the same thing. Our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education, the economic security of their families, an environment with clean air, clean water, safe environment, also safe from gun violence, and a world at peace in which they could thrive. So I saw everything through that prism. So again, usually you can find common ground on the children with almost, and anyone, because what is politics all about anyway? The future. Elections are about the future. And I was going to say, I'll call them by their titles. The mayor and the supervisors can tell you that it's all about the future. That's why we're there, for the children. It's supposed to honor the vision. Our values are to honor the vision of our founders of a democracy where every person is respected. Now, they couldn't do it right off the bat because they had a compromise to get a constitution, but they were brilliant in making the Constitution amendable. So in the history of our world, our country, we always had an expansion of freedom, abolition of slavery, people having the right to vote, first black men added, then women, and blah, blah, blah. Until turning over Roe v. Wade. That was the first time we went in the opposite direction, from freedom. And that's what we have to win back. So anyway, shared values are an important part of if you're wasting your time talking to somebody, or if you really think that there's a prospect for success.
As you're talking, yes, I have more questions, but what just popped up was, when you were a young girl, were you somebody who just always gathered information? I'm staggered by all that you know and your experience, but also your perspective. And I want to know who was that became this, right? Like, what was this child? What was this teenager?
I was rocking around the clock in the basement of our house. And then along came Elvis. Oh my God. So that was really what I was young, what I was about. Dancing. You can never dance too much.
You can never dance. There's one thing we take from this. You can never dance too much. But were you always smart as a whip?
Well, I would make a distinction between, I don't know how smart I was, but I strove to be knowledgeable. And that gives you some better judgment, and that could be interpreted as being smart. But see, when one initially, if you go back to Congress, when I went there, first of all, I had no intention of running for Congress. Bashful, shy person that I was. I was a behind-the-scenes person, chair of the California Democratic Party, and some of you here, we knew each other way back when. And anyway, so I loved promoting other people, I'm a staunch Democrat. See, I was born in a family that was very political. My father was in Congress when I was born. And we lived in Little Italy in Baltimore, Maryland. And it was a very ethnic community, and that's where I was born and raised. My parents would live there to the end of their lives. We were devoutly Catholic, proud of our Italian-American heritage, fiercely patriotic, loving America, and staunchly democratic. And so we were raised in that the connection between the Democratic Party and our Catholicism was that we should care for other people, that we had a responsibility for public service, to care for people. So it takes many forms. It doesn't mean you have to run for office. I was never going to do that until I did. And that's what I say to the women here, and others, mostly the women. You never know. You never know. Know your power of you. The only person in the history of the world like you. So when the opportunity may present itself, just take inventory, take credit for how you were raised, what your education is, what your experience is, what it is. That authenticity is an enormous gift to public service. No, be yourself. That was the best advice I ever got. Be yourself. Secondly, again, know the power of you from the difference that you bring. And then the third is just be ready, because you just never know when the opportunity may present itself. as I did. I had no interest, no ambition, no nothing as far as running for office was concerned. But
and thank
but
goodness.
then I say this because then when I was in Congress, I had no interest in running for leadership. I love my district. I love being part of the California delegation. What more could you want? But I had appropriations, I had intelligence, I had great committee assignments, and I just dug into them. I loved that work. So that when I did become speaker, I could solve problems because I had knowledge.
Because you had knowledge. Yeah. Does your negotiation strategy change depending on who's on the other side of the table? And how do you stay on course when working with people who are uninformed, ill-prepared, who have... What?
Anybody you know?
Uninformed, ill-prepared, or who have different principles, or maybe who are not looking for common ground.
But it used to be different. I mean, I've been there a long time, as you know. And then we had more of a kaleidoscope where there'd be many more Republicans interested in, for example, the environment or women's right to choose or different issues, gun violence. That's really gone now. But here's the thing, and you have to know this, because the most valuable commodity of all is time. How do you use time? You don't want to waste it on somebody who, for example, there are a lot of them there now who do not believe in science. They do not believe in governance. So if you say that science tells us that we must do thus and so to protect our environment, or science tells us that we must do these investments because of the way children's brains develop, and government recommends these protections or these initiatives. Well, two no's do not make a yes for them. No science, no governance. And if it happens to be a Democratic president like Joe Biden or Barack Obama, they got a trifecta going. No science, no governance, no Barack, no Joe Biden. That's the way it is. It's most unfortunate. So it is, if people want nothing, it's very hard to negotiate with them. You know, you understand that in your own lives. You don't want anything except tax cuts for the richest people in America, adding to the national debt. Now, how do we negotiate with that? So that's really what one of the challenges is now. It didn't used to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. And again, being respectful of the difference of opinion. People have different ideas. They represent different districts. I always say our job title and our job description are one and the same, representative. And so they represent their areas. But if they're people, I don't know that their constituents even realize that they're sending them there to do nothing. To do nothing. You know, to do nothing. We have to win, let's put it that way. We have to have
So, in your book, you talk about an attitude that's common for members of the House. You write that the Republicans aren't the enemy, the Senate is. Could you explain and what makes the House the superior legislative body?
Well, let me brag about that. I didn't say that. John Dingell said that when we were trying to figure out. See, this thing I told you today about the prescription drug, we've been trying to do that for decades. We would pass it in the House, We could never pass it in the Senate. And that's why people would get that impression. You know, the start of our country, our founders, they had a beautiful vision. They were geniuses. They were remarkable. But they had to have compromise to pass the Constitution. And we take an oath to protect and defend it, so we support that. California has 40 million people and 2 senators. Idaho has fewer members of constituents than I have in my district, and they have 2 senators. Okay, but that was the compromise that they settled. But along came the filibuster, where you have to have 60 votes in the Senate to be able to bring up a bill. 60 votes. That means 40% rules. 40% rules. And even sometimes 99 senators are not enough because any one can hold up. You saw, whatever his name was, from Alabama, who held up 500 defense security appointments. These people, I mean, these are professionals there for our security. They have children who have to go to school. They need to get their promotion to move them. But one senator held it all. So that's why, in, shall we say, maybe humor, and humor always has a little truth there, they would say the Republicans are opposition, the Senate are the enemy. But what we have to do in this election is win with 50 senators or more, but at least 50, and the Vice President, Tim Walz, breaking the tie to pull back the filibuster. When we do that, we can enshrine Roe v. Wade and law of the land. We can pass background check legislation to protect our saved lives in our country. We pass the Equality Act for LGBTQ, fairness in our economy, and every aspect of our economy. We can pass so many pieces of legislation. The main one, this is my unfinished bit, the main one will be our bill to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Combined with the For the People Act. The For the People, first 300 pages of it were written by John Lewis. And it was about stopping the suppression of the vote, stopping, you love this one, the nullification of the vote that they're trying to do in certain places, nullifying the election, nullification of the, it would stop big dark money, again, pharmaceuticals, guns, fossil fuels, all of that, suffocating the airways in our elections. It would stop partisan redistricting, gerrymandering, so that we could have fairness in all this. So this is to democratize our democracy further. And we pass it in the House, we pass it in the House, we just can't pass it. But if we get rid of the filibuster, we can pass it. And people will realize that their vote is as important as anybody else's, that their voice and their vote is so valuable. And I think it would appeal to young people especially who want to, the future belongs to them, and they should have more say in it in that way, in my view.
Can you just define for me? Yes. It comes up in your book, and I hear it often, but I don't really understand what it means, what dark money is.
Dark money is the money, I'm not a big fan of the Supreme Court for many reasons. For many reasons, Roe v. Wade, immunity, all that. But early on, they passed something called Approving of Citizens United legislation bill. Citizens United, nice title, horrible policy. Citizens United said that corporations could give any amount of money to the political process. The court said, yes, corporations are people. They can give any amount of money in the political process. Well, people can't. People can't. There's a restriction on what you're able to give. So this money took a dark path because corporations would not like their employees, their clients, their customers, their community to see how much money they were putting in to stop gun violence protection, to stop clean air, clean water, to stop lowering the cost of prescription drugs. The list goes on. The only thing we could do to stop what they did, usually if they passed something, we could pass a bill to correct it, but they shut down every window. It was a political decision on the part of the court. Shut down every window, and except one that they couldn't shut down, which said disclose. You can do whatever you want, but you have to disclose it. they didn't say that in the bill. We could pass that, but we haven't been able to pass it because of the 60 vote requirement. That's why that will be part of it. It's money that suffocates the airways. Now, when you see some of these campaigns and they're saying this and they're saying that, they're not saying we're here to keep the air dirty and the water putrid and all the rest. They'll say some other thing. We're here to grow the economy and we're doing this and we're doing that, but they're not doing any of it. But they suffocate the airways. And they confuse people, so people say, I don't even know these ads, I don't know what's going on here. And it does not stimulate participation, which they love. The lower the participation, the better they succeed. Now, gun industry just 24/7 manufacturing guns constantly put on our streets. It's remarkable. But just to show you, in 2010, when they did this, the court, and we couldn't, we passed in the House, of course, but we couldn't pass it in the Senate, the Disclose Act. The year before, that kind of money was about $1 million. The next year, it was over $125 million and had a real impact on the election of 2010.
As a layman who genuinely does not know a lot about how, I always feel like I'm on the outside, and you speak in such a way that I get to grasp things that when they're on the news and in other places, I'm just like, I don't know what that means. And it's really helpful, particularly as we're walking towards an election, because so often I feel empowered when I understand. And I know how to take action when I understand. And so I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for your book. I'm grateful for, obviously, the staggering amount of things that you have done to make our country better. But also in the way that you speak so clearly that your knowledge translates that I can understand it. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you saying that. But I'll tell you, as I said, Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can do almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. But that public sentiment can only weigh in if people know. And again, that big dark money just blocks what people know. But we have to do a better job of making sure people know. For example, when they went after the Affordable Care Act, they had like 70 pieces of legislation again and again and again to repeal it. They said repeal and replace. They were replacing it with nothing, but they were going to repeal it. We had 10,000 events around the country, 10,000 events around the country where people spoke about what it meant to them. They didn't go through the provisions of the bill. They went through their personal experience. So I say that because the language that they used fueled our sentiment, the people's language of how they saw it. And it was a beautiful thing to behold because they were speaking from their own experience. Hundreds of thousands of calls were made to the Capitol to help us stay on course to save the Affordable Care Act. So we're always listening to the people, because sometimes the Washingtonese is, we think everybody is a given that people understand, but they may not, and why should they? It's not their experience.
And not only don't understand, but then that's also part of the division that happens where people feel like their vote doesn't matter and politics has nothing to do with them. And it does. But there's a disconnect often on language. So in the book, you talk about balancing the power of the president and the importance of responsible power. Can you talk about the most recent Supreme Court ruling? You've talked a little bit about your feelings about the Supreme Court and how that erodes at least my idea of responsible power. How should we as American citizens think about responsible power within our government, because it feels scary right now? And how should Congress continue to lay the groundwork for responsible power?
Well, there's a tendency sometimes, and my colleagues can speak to this as well, to assume that people know. Assume is a word that is spelled this way. It makes an ass of you and me. You should assume nothing. Assume nothing. And you have to go out there and tell. There's so much to tell. So then you have to prioritize it so that people know what is in their interest. For example, I think that more should have been said and done about what has happened in the Biden-Harris administration. President Biden was the most consequential president of modern times. He did in 2 years when we had the majority with the House and Senate Democrats, we were very much a part of it. He did so many things for the people. He did, first of all, the American Rescue Plan to stop COVID, putting shots in arms, money in pockets, people back to work, children safely in school, a child tax credit, taking 50% of the children in poverty out of poverty, an issue that I love. And he did so many things for our labor, our unions, pension bill that was saving many unions in our country. So in almost for our seniors, so many things. Okay, and then the infrastructure bill to build America, but in a way that was done with justice, with communities helping to decide what infrastructure they wanted, and with justice in it. 40% of it had to be with communities of color and previously underrepresented people in the decision-making, not only in getting the jobs, but getting some of the contracts and the ownership of it, the equity that he had there. And then we go to chips and science. It wasn't just chips to make us self-reliant as a nation on factors of production. It was about science, too, which said we're going to have STEM, so many more women and people of color and the rest, and others who have not fully participated can be part of this science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. We in California add STEAM, adding the arts, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics, because we see that as part of the vision and the value system. And then, I can go on. Do you think I will? Maybe I already have. And then the PACT Act. Imagine the PACT Act, hundreds of billions of dollars for our men and women in uniform exposed to burn pits, which are carcinogenic, and now they are getting the care that even 1 million of them have already had some of their received some of their benefits. Others are you don't have to have a circuitous route of proving whether you were there that day when you got, or you're sick, you were there, you're covered. And this is a big thing for our veterans. And then the IRA. The IRA, as I said to you earlier, all this money to save the planet, to do it in a public-private, nonprofit web, tax credits so that the private sector could participate, attract further capital to get the job done, and reducing the cost of those prescription drugs. All these things are right at the kitchen table. Right at the kitchen table. What's at the kitchen table? A woman's right to choose. It's an economic issue. It's a freedom issue. It's a democracy issue that women would have a right to choose. And it's right there at that table, the size, timing, or if you're going to have a family, pensions, all these things are kitchen table issues. But do people know? Oh, no, I think the economy is better under what's his name. What are you talking about? The only thing he did, as I said, is a tax cut that gave 83% of the benefits to the top 1%, adding $2 trillion, not million, not billion, $2 trillion to the national debt. And now he says that's what he wants to get elected to renew that. While at the same time, when we're having a debate on the budget and we want to feed the children, it's like, oh, we can't do that because it's going to add to the national debt. No, you just gave $2 trillion to the national. So this is a values debate. It's a value. What is in our budget should be a reflection of our national values in our federal budget. And that's part of the debate that we spend a lot of time in Washington. But do people know? People say, why should I vote Democratic? What do they do for me? Well, not enough, obviously, but certainly more than you think. And it just burns me up on the women's right to choose. I mean, it just burns me up. I mean, I had 5 children. My husband and I had 5 children in 6 years and 7 days. And so,
But who's counting?
and now 10 grandchildren. And to hear them say, well, people don't count if they don't have children. Well, if they didn't try, if they tried, but what are they
Obviously,
talking
I don't
about?
count.
Get out of here. Mind your own business.
Yes. Okay. We are done. But before we are done, I want to ask you some really fun rapid fire questions.
Okay, rapid fire.
First, tea or coffee? Do you drink tea or coffee?
Both.
Okay.
How depends on the time of day.
Oh, it depends on the time of day. How many pages do you read a day? And my question is, what time of day, digital or paper, and do you highlight or take notes?
Well, I like doing where I can take notes.
Okay.
Write on the page or turn it down and stuff like that. Largely in the tub at night. But I read, this is something somebody taught me to do because I was losing sleep over what I was reading at night about the economy and and so they said, read that stuff in the morning, but read other things at night so that you will eventually go to sleep.
How many hours do you sleep a night?
I've gone from 4 to 6. By the time I get to 8, I'm going to feel like a newborn baby. That's my goal, but I don't know when.
Okay, I'm going to end by just reading one passage here that it will take us out. This is on page 288. We're going to see if I can do this without putting on my glasses. The threat to our democracy is real, present, and urgent. The parable of January 6th reminds us that our precious democratic institutions are only as strong as the courage and commitment of those entrusted with their care. Today, Americans need to resolve to honor our higher purpose as citizens of the United States of America, to ensure that our flag is still there with liberty and justice for all. This is a wonderful and worthy book.
Well,
I was told.
She said, well, I can respond then.
Yeah, so she's going to respond.
Okay.
You think we have a few more? I could ask an audience question or two. I want to respect the time. We've been told it's important. So my question in that is, what is the call to action for us?
Well, we don't want to leave here without having something to do to save our republic. Here's the thing. I represent San Francisco for 37 years. I've been there 50 years. My husband born and raised there. But I was brought up in Baltimore, as I said, in Little Italy in Baltimore. People told us we lived in the slums. We didn't know that. But nonetheless, that was their problem, not ours. So in any case, the national anthem was written in Baltimore. We took great pride in that. It's written. And you know at the end, when you're at the game, when you're at the Dodger game, when you get toward the end of the song, home of the brave, land of the free, home of the brave, everybody cheers, right? Madam Mayor, when I start cheering is when it says, proof through the night that our flag was still there. Proof that right now we are in that night, that we have to prove through this night that our flag is still there by winning this election. And that our flag is still there as we pledge every day with liberty and justice for all, for all. And that is our challenge. I wear this pin all the time. This pin is a pin that has on it one country, one destiny. unity. We don't want to become them in this debate. We want to be unifying and have a bold message, but have it be unifying and respectful. This was what was embroidered in Lincoln's jacket the night he was assassinated. I think he wore that jacket a lot, judging from the pictures we've seen of him. One country, one destiny. And that's what we have to strive for, a more perfect union. This is a great country. Nothing like it had ever existed before our founders. So we have to honor the vision of our founders, the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform to protect that freedom that they established, and the aspirations of our children that they will live in this free, great place. So this election, we're 12 weeks minus 2 days away from that day, but the voting will start sooner. The voting will start sooner. I don't mean this as political. I mean this as civic. It's a civic for our country. That when we leave here, understand this, in order for the flag to be still there with liberty and justice for all, the assaults that are being made by the other side, eliminate the Department of Education, women not having right to this, that, and the other, it would be a different country. We cannot let that happen. But what we can do about it is this. I don't know what, time, as I said, is a very precious commodity. Any amount of time you can give to the 3 M's. 1, mobilization, to own the ground, to get out that vote, whether it's whether you're texting, whether you're calling, whether you're door knocking, whether you're sending postcards, whatever it is, to make sure that we get out the vote. That everything else is a conversation, unless you're acting upon it and getting out the vote. Mobilization, M. Second M, messaging. We have to have a bold, progressive message, but not menacing, more unifying for our country. That is a winning message that fuels the mobilization, attracts and persuades. I guess that. And the third M is money. And that's coming in from small donors and the rest, and that's very, very wholesome. So we got the 3 M's. The 3 no's: no wasted time, no underutilized resources, and no regrets the day after the election that we could have done more. Some of these races, we lost a race a few years ago in Iowa, 6 votes. The race was determined in Northern California earlier, 4 votes. So when we're talking about these races in California, we have some congressional races, and we want to maintain our strength in the state legislature and local government as well. But when we see those electoral college states, we have to win them. And so calling into that area or supporting the efforts in those states it's Washington crossing the Delaware. This is the fight that we are in. It is the fight that we are in. Sad to say, because, Bob Dole, Mitt Romney, George Bush, we may have disagreements on issues, but they were never undermining our democracy. And this is a very different story. Kamala Harris, as you see, there's been a kind of a sea change in terms of the enthusiasm and the rest across the country. I know her. Let me start with Tim. Some of us served with him. I served for 12 years with him. He came to the Congress bravely representing a red district. He won it and voted for the Affordable Care Act, went home and won again, came back to be part of putting together, to being the top Democrat on the Veterans Affairs Committee, doing more for veterans than had been done since World War II. He's really been a super patriot, and again, agriculture, other issues too. Kamala Harris I've known for decades. She's a person of deep faith, which is reflected in her sense of community and helping people. That's personally. Officially, she's very strong. Strong in her knowledge, strong in her judgment, strong in her strategic thinking, and again, eloquent in her presentation. You've seen that most recently with the women's right to choose, but other issues certainly as well. Global and domestic. Politically, so astute. She's won very difficult races along the way because she's politically astute. So I have every confidence that with her values and all that I described about Kamala and Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, that they will lead us to victory. But we have, and I want them, people say, what advice we got? No advice, I'm not giving, be yourself, just do your own thing. But we have to be there on the ground with the message and the resources to get the job done. So sign up. Oh, is that allowed here?
Get registered.
Forget I said that. Forget I said to go sign up so that you can make calls and all the rest. But this is it. This is going to be fun. We're going to win. We must win. We must win. So that we know that we proved through the night that our flag was still there with liberty and justice for all. Let us thank Tracee Ellis Ross for keeping us disciplined and on time.
What is happening?
Isn't it exciting to be with her?
Madam Speaker, I want to say thank you so much for all that you do, all that you've done, how you express yourself, and what you continue to do. We are so grateful. We will go do all our part. We will not only register ourselves and do all those other things, but we will also check that we're registered, and we will make sure everyone around us is registered so that we do our thing. But let's thank you so much, shall we?